Welcome back to the Emily the Mystic Show. Everyone, I am really excited about today's guest because he is an expert in helping those of us who are highly sensitive, empathic souls understand how we operate and relationships and our own ways of navigating stress. And I feel like he's going to have a lot of wisdom to share with us. So, welcome to the show, Todd Smith, who is the creator of one of the most popular podcasts for highly sensitive people. He's helped hundreds of HSPs break free from chronic stress and emotional overload using a powerful inquiry-based process that brings lasting peace without needing the world around you to change. I love that, Todd. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Emily. It's great to be here.
And Todd, where are you located?
I'm in British Columbia, Canada, the west coast of Canada. Well, kind of west coast. I'm above central Washington state.
Amazing. Love it. And I always love to ask my guests, can you share with us your astrology, sun, moon, and rising, and your human design type if you know it?
Absolutely. Yeah. My rising sign is Scorpio. My moon sign is Libra. And I guess, the Lord of my rising sign is Cancer, so that's also a factor. Sun is in Gemini and I'm using the Vedic astrology setup rather than the Western astrology. So that's a little picture of me. Oh, and with
Yeah.
human design, I show up as a generator.
Wow, so powerful. I, before we hit record here, Todd was telling me that he's married to an astrologer, which I found so cool. So, Todd, tell me a little bit about what your unique combination of astrology means to you and about who you are.
Yeah. The Scorpio makes me interested in depth for sure.
Mm-hmm.
My sun is in the eighth house, which is also hidden things. So I love exploring what is not obvious to the eye. I like to bring light into that area. Uh, you know, I have Lord of the First in the ninth in terms of, and then in Cancer. So it's this it's this homey quality as well. And I have a lot of Libra. So Moon in Libra, and that really gives me the interest in balancing opposites. And I find that that is one of the most healing things that we all have to do because we live in a world of opposites. And how do you reconcile these and put them together in one big, more comprehensive understanding? And so, yeah, all those things I think just lead me in the direction that I seem to be following.
So beautifully said. And especially it is Libra season as we are recording this episode. So that's even
Yeah.
more interesting because I feel like this time of the year really is all about cultivating that balance in your life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's a time for it, and it's always a good time for balance, but it's kind of fun to be in the Libra season as well.
So, can you share with us a little bit in your own words about your work and what you help people with?
Yeah, I teach stress management specifically for highly sensitive people, and everybody needs stress management, and some of the principles are the same no matter who you are. But I consider there to be three main pillars of stress management for highly sensitive people. The first one is just understanding what that is. What does it mean to be highly sensitive? It's a trait. It's about 15 to 20% of the population has it. They've studied it. And just understanding that is a huge part of reducing stress because we tend to think there's something wrong with us. The world tells us that we're off, there's something wrong, we're not normal. We should just get over it or be less sensitive. So that's one aspect. Then I have a whole other area of outer work where we look at how to balance life, how to live in a more balanced way so that you're not accumulating stress or that you can have a more just a more healthy kind of living. And then the deepest part is inner work, which is where we work with the thoughts and beliefs that we have that we get attached to, and even unknowingly can end up just getting wrapped up around those thoughts and end up getting really stressed out. It also has to do with healing trauma and those kinds of things as well, because those experiences need to be digested, and until they just keep on running us. So that's sort of how I approach it. It's a huge wide area, obviously. That's kind of why I love it. You can go anywhere, but it is a lot of fun to work with highly sensitive people.
And can you explain to us some of the characteristics of a highly sensitive person and what they might experience in their life?
Absolutely. There are four main characteristics that kind of define being highly sensitive, according to the researchers. The first one is depth of processing. So we take in information and then we sit with it and then we mull it over and then we play with it and make connections to other pieces of information in us. And this is our skill, it's our ability, but it takes time, it takes energy. Um, which leads to the second thing, which is tendency towards overwhelm. We tend to, because of the depth of processing, we tend to um, reach our limit quicker than other people. And this is especially true when there's a lot of things going on around us or a lot of things going on within us. Then we can just max out and kind of, yeah, break down. Like, be like, okay, I'm done. Other people have a higher tolerance for that kind of thing and can end up not getting overstimulated or overwhelmed as easily. The third area is empathy, our emotion, and we feel emotions very deeply. We notice emotions in other people, and we are easily able to connect with people in a very deep way. Again, the depth comes in, but this is part of the trait of being a highly sensitive person. And then the last one is just sensory sensitivity. Like, we notice smells and sights and sounds and all kinds of little nuances. I sometimes say a regular person, if you ask them to count from 1 to 10, it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Highly sensitive person is like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Like, there's a lot of nuance in there that a highly sensitive person sees that the other person doesn't. This also contributes to overwhelm, and it can be one of the things that can max us out a little bit earlier as well.
Oh boy, do I resonate with the whole list that you shared.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
me too.
yes. And I'm sure most, if not all, of my listeners will also resonate with the same. So I would love to know, Todd, how did you discover that you are a highly sensitive person? Take me on that journey of self discovery and what led you here.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I didn't really know that I was a highly sensitive person. Never really heard of that until a few years ago. And a friend of mine was like, you know what, you might be a highly sensitive person. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And she explained it. And then she said, go take a test. And I was like, okay, I took the test. I'm like, oh, yes, I'm a highly sensitive person. So it was kind of like that came later in my understanding. But when I look back at my whole life, I've always been interested in meditation. I learned to meditate when I was 6. That's been a huge part of my life. I lived in an ashram for about 10 years. And I've always been really good with people, but I only tolerate so much of it. So all those traits were there, and so yeah, it just kind of made sense and kind of all landed together when I kind of figured that out a few years ago.
And tell me a little bit about your business journey and how you discovered that you wanted to use your own self discovery process to help other people.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was one of those kids that didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. It took me a long time. And I got into meditation really deeply, and I became a teacher of meditation for a while. But it was kind of hard to figure out how to make that work at the time. I just didn't, I was confused as terms to like, do I just go and meditate all the time, or do I go outward and try to try to be there for other people? And I think it was part of my maturing process. When I came out of the ashram, then I was in a relationship, and same relationship I'm in now, but it was challenging, and I started realizing this is not a simple thing being in a relationship, and there's like all kinds of different stresses that showed up for me and everything, and so that's when I learned a process of self inquiry. It's called the Work of Byron Katie, which I've been doing now for about 18 years, and I was like, this is really cool, and I'm like, I want to do something with this, and so I started facilitating people and serving people in that way, and it just has resonated for a long time. I got training in that and everything, and then just in the last year or so, I was like, who do I serve the most? Like, who can I serve? Who am I most equipped to serve? And I thought about it, like, what do I really do? I help people with stress. And then I thought, who would appreciate that most? And who are my favorite kinds of clients? And it's like HSPs. So, highly sensitive people is kind of how everything happened. And I really pivoted my business in the last year, and it has given me so much clarity, and it's just given me just I feel so much alignment in that, uh, just knowing that I'm building a business now around a certain kind of person, not around a certain kind of solution, and it feels like it's just, yeah, it turned everything around for me, so that's where I'm at right now.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so exciting. And can you tell me a little bit more about the modality that you mentioned, the work of Byron Katie? I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It just cuts through it so well. And I'll tell you how the process works. Basically, it's a meditative process. It's sometimes people think, oh, it seems kind of intellectual or something like that, but it is not. It's actually very experiential. And so, what you do is you start with any stressful experience. It might be a moment when somebody said something to you, it triggered you, something went off inside, or you just noticed that you something got you. That's the starting moment. And then what you do is look for the thought that you were believing in that moment, what the thoughts were. And you can just brainstorm, write them down, like, what was I thinking there? Oh, they should have been nicer to me, or that was rude, or whatever. I want them to, listen to me, things like that. And once you have some thoughts on paper, you pick one of those thoughts and question it. And the questioning is an amazing process because you take where you were, like literally, honestly, where you were, where you showed up emotionally, like, I want them to be nice to me or something. And you actually ask that kind of part of yourself that got hooked in on these questions. So, is it true? And I'm not just saying, is it true from an intellectual kind of point of view? I'm saying, I want to know your experience. You're the one that told me, like, let me back up for a second. It's like there's two parts of us. There's a kind of part of us that's stuck, that got triggered. And there's a part of us that's like wise and, has read all the books and knows all the spiritual wisdom and
Hmm.
all of that. Well, I'm not asking that part. I'm asking the stuck part. Is it true? Like, you just told me that it's true, but I want to hear, double check. Is it true? And then again, can you absolutely know it's true? Second question. And then how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? And it shows you all the repercussions of believing that thought. I want them to be nice to me. And then, like, I'm angry, I'm passive aggressive, I'm shut down, my emotions feel tight, my body's, off, or it can go on and on. So, how do I react? And then, who would I be without the thought in that same situation when that person said whatever it was? I want them to be nice to me. It can open up your mind to, wow, okay, I would be understanding more where they're coming from. I would be less reactive. It just separates me out a little bit from that whole situation. And so through that questioning, you start to see the effect of the thought on you. Like when the thought is in there, it's like, like your mind on drugs, right? It's like it goes crazy. If the thought isn't there, it often is much different. And so The last part is to turn the thought around, and there may be different opposites that you can try on and say, like, instead of I want them to be nice to me, I want me to be nice to me, and then find examples of how you could be nice to you in the moment when the person is not being nice to you. Or I want me to be nice to them, and like in the moment when they're not being nice to me. Or I don't want them to be nice to me. Like, how is it understandable that they're not? How is it okay that they're not? Like, how is it even serving me? And these kind of questions just open your mind. And what I find is it softens the anger or the sadness or the hurt, and it brings you back to yourself. It brings you back to self responsibility, and it opens really freedom. Like, that's inner freedom is what I'm all about, and that's what happens when you explore in this way. Obviously there's many other ways to do that kind of process, but I just love the efficacy of this one. It just gets right to it. And the best thing about it is when you've really seen the situation differently, you can't go back to unseeing it. And so in your heart, something has changed, and you walk around and another person or the same person does the same kind of thing. And you're like, why is that not bothering me? And
Mhm.
that's the amazing part about it.
I love that because it really breaks the pattern of overwhelm for a highly
Yeah.
sensitive person when encountering a situation that might have triggered a strong stress response in the past. It really helps you understand and break down and also kind of separate the thoughts from the feelings. Because I feel like for those of us who are HSPs, it's so interconnected that sometimes we can't see the light through the trees because our feelings are overwhelming us, and then the thoughts are overwhelming, and then we're
Yes,
thinking far into the future, but we're also worried about the past at the
that's
same
right.
time. So I love how
Exactly.
that really helps to kind of break it down and simplify it, and helps you see things from a new perspective.
I think of the emotions as the alarm clock. They get my attention. They tell me something's off, but then if I follow it to what I'm thinking at the same time, then I can see something that I can actually begin to question. And when I do, it shifts the thoughts. Right, mind and body are connected. So I use the body, if you say emotions in the body, letting me know what the thoughts are, work the thoughts, and it shifts the emotions. So yeah, it's cool to see that.
And one thing I think that's really interesting about HSPs is that we tend to be a bit conflict avoidant because we don't like to have to feel the feelings of being in conflict with another person.
Correct.
It's the
Yes.
worst. I can speak from experience. I've done a lot of work around this. So I would love to know, Todd, how do you help people navigate that journey of, yeah, conflict in relationships? Because it is a healthy part of any relationship.
Absolutely. We're all different, right? If you look at astrology or you look at human design, you look at these different ways of understanding ourselves, we all see the universe from completely different points of view. And it's amazing we can communicate at all sometimes. But when you're in an intimate relationship, the chances of conflict are going to be, they're just, I would say, probably 100% at some point. There's going to be a difference of opinion at least. And it can, if there's stress involved, it can lead to conflict or to something that's not enjoyable to experience. So the way I uh, support people with this is I don't so much work with couples in terms of like, let's hear your side, you hear your side, like kind of communicating on that level. Communication is important, and I think some people are very skilled at that kind of therapy. What I tend to focus on is one person's perspective. Like, where are you? What is your experience in this conflict situation? And let's do some inner work. So the first step is to notice what's stressing you. And it's always really the same. It's like, what, give me a moment, give me a time when that person said something that triggered you and shut you down or made you angry or something like that. Let's zoom in, because the whole is contained in every part. And so if you can focus on one small part, first of all, it's a miniature part that is much easier to hold. And secondly, it's going to keep it real for you. You're not just kind of thinking in abstract terms. And finally, when you do work it in a real small, minute situation, it it informs all other aspects of the relationship as well. So first step is just to notice the stress, and just as I mentioned, begin writing down some of those thoughts. There's a great little worksheet called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, which is built for identifying a whole bunch of thoughts in a particular moment about somebody. So it's like, I'm angry at my partner because, and then blah 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 blah, and you get a chance to just kind of rant on paper, where it doesn't really do any harm, but it's also the first step towards questioning those thoughts and seeing another perspective. So that's really the approach that I use. Once you've done some work and you've found just a little opening, something shifts inside, you see that situation differently. You see your partner differently. You see yourself differently, and it becomes then easy to communicate in a way that is non confrontational. So the whole communication part starts to come more spontaneously based on a shift of how you're seeing the situation.
Oh, 100%, absolutely. And I feel like all of that taps into another thing that I notice with highly sensitive people, which is that we tend to develop these people pleasing coping mechanisms when we're
Oh, yeah.
growing up to protect ourselves from the conflict. And in order to get by and in order to navigate those challenging relationships that we likely had with others, with our parents or family when we were kids. And I know that, of course, people pleasing is something that we have to let go of because it's not serving us. So, with that being said, what do you notice in your clients who are struggling with people pleasing or being too nice? And how can anyone listening who is dealing with the conflict avoidance or dealing with the people pleasing, how can they start taking their power back and living a life that's more empowering to them?
Yeah, it's a great question. You're absolutely right. We, as highly sensitive people, don't want to have people upset with us, because we feel emotions so strongly. And so we don't want to have that experience. And as a result, we can end up trying to people please, to placate others. And what happens is we end up losing ourselves in the process. And so it's not sustainable long term. It's a nice short term coping mechanism, but um, it doesn't lead to a lot of deep happiness or connection even with other people, because now we're interacting kind of based on a facade in a way. So how do you do that? How do you stop doing that? The real answer to that is to connect more with yourself. And when I was growing up, I didn't know, even though I was connected with myself in a lot of ways, there were a lot of pieces of me that I just didn't know. And I didn't know what my favorite color was. I didn't know what kind of music I liked. I didn't know, who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I didn't. And so we're so used to checking in and paying attention to what other people want, and we're really good at that. We have to turn that around and look at what is it that we want. What kind of, in a relationship, like what is it that's working for me about this relationship, or what's the kind of person that I want to be with, right? Or um, like, what do I want to do? Not just, oh, whatever you like, I'm fine with anything, no problem. We can just end up avoiding checking in and actually asking ourselves. So I think the simple approach that I like to use with myself and others is to actually ask a question to myself, like, what do I want to do today? Today's a day off. I could do anything. What do I want to do? And my default is to just not say anything, be like, oh, we'll just go with the flow or whatever. But actually ask that question and wait and see what comes up. because there is wisdom inside of us. There are preferences inside of us. And if you ask and give yourself the space to really listen and wait for an answer, you will find it. And so one of the things that HSPs don't do well with is time pressure. So I like to give myself time. Okay, I'm going to ask, and it might take a day or two before I get a clear answer. And maybe I didn't get it this time, but it'll be repeated next time. And it's like over time, I start getting a little clearer and a little bolder, and I start showing up and I start taking up some space with other people instead of being the one that's holding space all the time, which is our tendency.
Oh, I love that answer so much. It's so important because yeah, honestly, we're not really taught in our society to ask ourselves the question, what do I want? Like, what do I want with my life? We are taught to go to school to get the job, to participate in society, to make the money, to eventually retire. But we are not taught to live a life that is authentic to us and in alignment with what we want. And I find that so often with my own clients as someone who does intuitive readings and does soul work for people, that so many clients come to me wanting to outsource their power and be given the answers of like, what's the next step in my journey? Or what is going to happen for me in my life next? And so often I am even guided spiritually to reflect back to my client. Well, have you actually gone inwards and asked yourself, well, what do I really want
Yeah.
next?
I mean, it's the missing piece.
It is. And it can
And
be
when
a
you
little
do
bit
it,
confronting because in your life until this point, you may not have had the freedom to even be able to take a look at that.
that's right. That's right. And we often will sometimes put ourselves last so often that we start believing that our opinion doesn't count, or that even if we do have an opinion, we can't act on it because others will disapprove. And so there's layers of this. But the more you ask and the more you get clear about what it is that you want to do, the more you do find naturally the courage to do that. For example, with the pivot in my business in the last year, like I really I changed direction so much that some clients fell away, right? And I'm found a new kind of niche in a way, and that was that people I've had people say, "Oh my God, have you gone insane?" And I'm like, but because it was so connected, and because I took so much time, I took several months of really feeling that out. That when I found it, it was so connected to something deep inside that no matter if other people think I'm crazy or not, I am I'm like I have the courage because I'm in touch with what actually is true for me. And that's what makes the difference.
And what kind of clients were you working with before?
It's the same like with the work of Byron Katie, right? Same thing, but people were coming from the work of Byron Katie mainly. They already knew the process, whereas I decided I'm going to step out to people that have never
Mm,
tried this, and I'm going to make it more about the the people HSPs and their needs and less about this process. In fact, I offer other
mm-hmm,
processes in addition to the work
mm-hmm.
of Byron Katie. So it's like I switched it around instead of being,
Yeah.
you know, all built around one solution. So it was like, it's almost like, like losing your religion or something like that in a kind of weird way. And it's not that it's not like that exactly, but that was the courage that I realized I had to take to follow that particular direction. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. And I feel like that's just an important message I want to highlight for any spiritual business owners who are listening is that we're so often taught in this business space to focus and lead with your modality as your business. And that's what's going to lead you to success. But I have found in my own business that I focus more on who is who is the woman or who are the people that I am here to serve and focusing my business and my niche around that and my ideal client has helped me with growing my business success versus leading with a particular modality. So I
Yeah.
just love that you shared that. And then on that note, too, I feel like another aspect to this conversation of well, really tuning into what do I want, or even who do I want to work with in terms of my success as a business owner, there comes the question of decision making and making decisions in our life or in our business, in our entrepreneurship journey. And a lot of our life as adults is focused around decision making. So I find that as highly sensitive people, we have so much stress when it comes to decision making because we're considering, oh, what do other people think, or what are other people going to think about us if we make this decision, or what are other people's expectations of us? Or also, okay, like what are the risks versus the rewards of making this decision, in the pro and con list? So I guess my question is, when we're thinking about the process of decision making as highly sensitive people, how can we get more comfortable and confident with making decisions that are aligned with who we are?
That's a great question. Yeah, you said it perfectly. We take into account everyone else's opinions, and we also weigh the pros and cons a lot. In a way, this is our strength. We actually are capable as highly sensitive people to of making decisions like really well. We can make decisions really well. That is something we're good at in a way, but it can drive us crazy in the process. And how do you manage to find the balance between staying sane, staying connected to yourself, and doing something that does fit the environment, right? Like when you're aware of so many things and so many people, you can tailor a complex solution to a problem that that others couldn't do. And so making decisions, it's related to that. But the problem comes when the analogy I like to think of is if you've ever tried to bring a Christmas tree through a door, if you try to bring it from like the top of the Christmas tree through, it's like all the branches are going to break and like bend backwards, and like needles are going everywhere. It's going to be a big mess. If you bring it from the other way, from like the trunk first, then like everything just kind of comes through very naturally and easily. So what is the leading part of making a decision? It's, what do I feel? Again, what is the connection to myself? What am I leaning towards? What is the and so it comes back to asking myself again, what do I feel is the best way to go here? And for me, that requires actually stopping asking other people, stopping thinking about other people, removing myself a bit from them. And I can do that in different ways. Like sometimes just giving myself time to mull things over and not having to come up with a decision on the spot or based on whoever I'm happen to be around at the moment, and just letting it percolate. But what I'm really talking about here is getting in touch with the deeper parts of myself, which which guide me. That's where true like guidance comes from. It's from inside. And when I follow that, it doesn't matter if some people like it, some people don't like it. It doesn't matter if it's perfectly designed decision or not. I'm still connected with it on the inside, and I can carry that through thick or thin as I go. So it's really the same thing. It's about making space for yourself and giving yourself time without constantly thinking about everyone else, and without constantly thinking about all the repercussions. We are going to do that anyway, but just make this primary. Make asking yourself and the alignment with yourself the primary thing, then the rest falls into place.
Beautifully said. Another thing that comes up for me as I'm hearing what you're saying are clients who come to me who are in the process of outsourcing their power because they're seeing social media and all of the quote unquote gurus out there who are offering different solutions to different problems. And we live in this society, in this world now where, and it's a great thing. We have the ability to be entrepreneurs, and we have the ability to help other people. So everyone what I'm trying to say is that everyone has something to say, and there's so many people out there on social media who are offering up their particular solution. And so, again, sometimes I will have clients come to me who are constantly comparing themselves to what they see on social media, or constantly hiring the next person to help them solve the problem on social media. And they are not going inwards to ask themselves the question, what do I really want?
That's it.
So, how would you guide someone out there who's listening who maybe is looking to everyone else for the answers and has a hard time going in?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think of the best teachers out there, they always point you back to yourself. That's what they do. And so you can kind of, there's different kinds of teachers that have a skill that just you're going to learn a particular thing from them. Then great. Okay. Simple, learn the skill. That's great. But the deeper teaching is it's like, who what do you want to do? How do you want to serve? Who are you? What aligns with you? Those kinds of teachings can't be taught, actually. They can just be facilitated. They can just be, you can hold the space for someone to find what works for them. But ultimately, you're just saying, hey, you got to do your work. You've got to look inward. You've got to take the time, spend the time to find this for yourself. So if you're finding yourself distracted by lots of different opposing opinions and ideas of where you should be and all of that, try checking in. Like, for me with social media, I kind of checked in and I'm like, I'm going to do enough to just sort of have a presence there, but it's not like my main thing. It's just like it's a little too much for me. So unless that becomes clearer and there's a simpler way of doing it, or I have someone that can handle it more for me or something like that, it's going to be like the bare bones version of social media. But in terms of just finding direction, like ultimately you have to find it by listening to yourself. Great. It's great to learn and it's great to hear other people's ideas and get inspiration and get true learning, but don't make them the captain of your ship. You have to be the captain.
Yes, so true. We have to captain our own ships. Absolutely. I want to pivot our conversation a little bit, Todd, because it's fun for me to have a male guest on the show. I typically have a lot of female guests on the show. And as a male who identifies with being a highly sensitive person, perhaps for someone listening who is female, who may be in a relationship with a highly sensitive man in their life, how can we as women learn to support our partners who are highly sensitive? What advice could you give us around that?
Yeah. Highly sensitive men are kind of an interesting thing because typically in our society, men are not like being sensitive is not necessarily like what men strive to be. It tends to be thought of as a more feminine aspect. But when you look at the research, 50% of highly sensitive people are men and 50% are women. So it's right down the middle.
Wow.
And you will find, if you start looking, you will notice highly sensitive men everywhere. It's only, for HSPs in general, it's only 20% of the population, but you'll notice it. My dad was a highly sensitive person. He was a manly man. He had a wood shop and he was a doctor and did all the, he was definitely a man, but he was a deep processor. He used to say, I'm a slow processor, and he would have to mull things over and he was emotional and he could have this gruff exterior a little bit. He was a Cancer, so he had that little wall, as well. But
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, he was sensitive. And so having like first of all, it's I think noticing it and seeing that it's everywhere, that there's sensitivity in men all over the place, is helpful for normalizing it. The other thing is for men, like they may not want to even identify with being highly sensitive. You don't have to put a label on it to appreciate someone who is highly sensitive. What I can say as a highly sensitive man and interacting with people is that I love to be treated with understanding, and I love to connect, and I love deep connection. And so um, understanding that about a person, a man in your life who is highly sensitive, will allow you to be gentle with them, to go deep with them, to appreciate them, and not try to put them in a box of other men. So it's obviously it's individual. Each person is different, but the same way highly sensitive men are just like highly sensitive women. uh, they need space. They don't take teasing as well as others. They can get overwhelmed. They need alone time. All of these things are ways you can care for someone who's highly sensitive in your life, and just know that they're different and that it's okay. Like they don't have to be the same as everyone else. We march to the beat of a different drummer, and we kind of have to follow that to stay balanced. So encouraging them to be balanced, even in subtle ways, can give a feeling of ease for a highly sensitive man, that he's like, okay, I don't have to perform all the time. I can actually relax and just chill. HSPs are sometimes accused of being boring because we don't always want to go do the next greatest thing because we're already stimulated enough. There's enough, simple
Yes.
little situation to be entertaining for us. So, like, allowing that, like, giving that space, that is the best way to love someone who is a highly sensitive man, is just allow them to be themselves, whatever that may look like.
And then on the other hand, too, one thing I find fascinating about highly sensitive people is that sometimes we have a hard time opening up about our emotions because we probably grew up in a household situation where our emotions were too much for our caregivers. And so we were taught to push them down. And then what we've talked about so far with the people pleasing and the conflict avoidance, we want to keep the peace by keeping our emotions to ourselves. So, my question is, how could the listener go about practicing emotional vulnerability with a safe person in their life? And also, how can they encourage the people around them to open up their heart to tap into being more vulnerable themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. The key for being vulnerable is feeling safe, and it's sometimes hard to feel safe in certain environments where there's judgment or criticism. So I think the first place where you have to find safety is within yourself, because it is something we have more control over, and that's why I love doing this work. Like I mentioned, the work of Byron Katie, where I will take a situation where I'm emotional, and I will give myself the space to, first of all, emote, and then look at and explore and examine and kind of play with that vulnerable part of myself and watch it become stronger, become more resilient. Then what happens is, as I get more accustomed to taking care of myself in that way, then first of all, I don't need it as much from other people. There's a little less desperation. And second of all, I'm able to carry some of that confidence into a situation, and actually feel like that I am safe, even if other people are a little bit critical. And finally, I'm more capable of communicating what my actual needs are and setting up a situation that would allow me to actually get what I want. And you can ask, like, can you hold me in this? Can you listen to me? Can I just emote for a minute without having to come to a conclusion? These possibilities open up when I'm more and more comfortable with being vulnerable with myself. So this is a lifelong process. There are parts of us that we don't want to look at, and we've pushed them down, and that's fine. In fact, it's kind of what keeps us sane in some ways. But little by little, as we grow spiritually, we want to uncover some of those parts that were covered up and start to process those and deal with those and that's how we open our depth. That's how we connect to the depth of our spirit. See, these little knots of stress and places where we're afraid to be vulnerable, they are what block us from being spiritually open beings. And so as our interest grows in that direction, then we naturally start pushing the limits a little bit, and that comes naturally. We can't force it. If you go too fast, it'll be too much for you, and you'll shut right back down again.
Yeah.
But gently giving yourself space to push the envelope a little bit, but also stay safe. Like that's the main thing. What happens with other people is that's like the cherry on top. That's when, as you do your own work, then you start finding that there's plenty of people around that can support you as well. And even the people you thought couldn't, they're amazingly more adept than you ever realized because you're becoming more adept yourself.
Yeah. And as you shift your energy, you watch your life around you shift, and other people respond to you differently. And it's such a powerful process. It's so true.
It's amazing. Like I've mentioned that I first started, my biggest issue was with my partner, and when I look at the change that has happened over almost 20 years of this kind of work, it's like night and day. It's not the same. It's not even close to the same relationship because my energies has shifted, and so things that would bug are not bugging, and so there I don't get into the vicious cycle, and we just bypass so many things that I would fall flat on my face with before.
Wow, that's incredible. And just goes to show, too, that you can continually learn in a committed partnership as well, and you evolve and grow together.
Yes, exactly. When I first started doing the work, I thought, oh my gosh, this is probably going to tell me to get out of the relationship or something like that. And what I found was I was the part of the issue of the relationship. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot I can do here. And then I started doing that. And then I started realizing, okay, it's actually getting better. Like maybe I want to be in this relationship. And then it just kept growing from there. So it's not like it's so easy to judge partners and be like, oh, I made a wrong choice, that person isn't the right person, or I just should be in another relationship. And many times that is true, but there is value in staying in a relationship and actually doing your inner work and coming to a new kind of relationship even within the same relationship.
100%. And you evolve and grow, and your partner evolves and grows with you if they can, if they have the capacity for that.
Exactly.
So that's amazing. I have one final question for you, which is, when it comes to boundary setting as a highly sensitive person, that can be a really uncomfortable process because, oh, again, that conflict avoidance, that fear of upsetting the other person comes up. So do you have any tips or recommendations for setting boundaries in an empowering way?
Yeah, there's two levels of boundary setting. One is just, the communication, like the words you use and that kind of thing. And I think when on that level, it's just noticing the difference between what is my business and what is the other person's business. Um, my business is to notice what's going on with me and be honest about that. And I have a right to do that. That's all within my domain. The other person's business is what they do, how they respond to that, whether they like it or not. And I can't control that. So if I'm trying to control what I can't control, I'm going to feel very weak. I'm going to get confused, and they're going to actually probably shut me down as a result of that because I'm actually not in my business. I'm over there trying to control them or what they're doing. So I think just separating that makes a huge difference. Like my business, as I define it, is what I can control. And what I can control is actually pretty small. It's what's within me, or how I see things, or what I say, or all of that. If I stay solidly there, then I have confidence in saying no, or saying, yes, or drawing a line, or those kinds of things. Um, and so I think that's probably the most important thing. The words, they kind of just depend on the situation. There are ways of saying things that keep emphasizing that I'm still in my business, instead of like, like you should change or something. It's like, this isn't working for me, or things like that. But the foundation of it is that I'm seeing where I am, and I have a right to say that. And the other part is, it's scary to when other people are going to react. But what happens when you are aligned with yourself, it becomes less scary. And so I think that's the key, is like, just keep checking in. Where are you? Where are you? And when you find it, communicate it. Doesn't mean there can't be compromise, but it means that you're being honest with yourself. You're showing up for yourself. And what I find is, a lot of energy comes from that. And so that gives me the courage to stand in my no. There are other things that I think are helpful. Just imagining the separation between you and another person, or just kind of like putting what's theirs out to them. Like, you can do visualizations that are kind of helpful along those lines, seeing yourself in a bubble, or that kind of thing. But all of those are kind of like ways of expressing the same basic thing, and the most core point, which is to be, um, just be clear. What is your business?
I think one thing that's so important that you said is, we can't control how the other person is going to respond. And that, I feel like, is so much of this at the end of the day, as a highly sensitive person, is knowing that so much is out of our control. What we can control is ourselves, and how we relate to ourselves, and how we take care of ourselves, and doing the work, and focusing on our journey, and discovering what we want. But ultimately, when we are leading from that place, from that empowered place of knowing ourselves and knowing what we want, ultimately what we are afraid of is a feeling. We're afraid of the
Yes.
feeling
Yes,
of,
exactly.
what if this other person is going to respond to my decision making in this way, or what if they don't like the boundary that I set, or what if they have this negative response to me. And again, ultimately, it's out of our control.
Yeah, we have a cool little turnaround for that. Like, sometimes when at the end of working through something, we'll be like, okay, what's the opposite of, I don't ever want them to do that to me again, have that experience again. Like, and it's, I'm willing to, or I even look forward to them doing that again, because it is helping me grow. And if you have a way of processing your stressful situations, I've had the experience many times where I got triggered, and I was actually excited. I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing! I can't wait to see what happens when I get home and work through this.
Oh my gosh, same here. I've started to see every challenge or stressful life situation as an initiation. I'm like, yes, this is helping me transform and be reborn into the next version of me. And I'm so here for it.
Totally, totally. So that's an open mind. So, like you said, everything, ultimately what we're afraid of is an experience, like an emotion, right? But if you see that emotion as a gateway into to learning and to growth, then I'm not as scared of that. And over time, I've come to trust that that's a part of the process. And so it becomes like, my experience really for a number of years is, I just don't feel much fear. Like, I'm not worried that something's going to go bad, because even that going bad is part of the path that's going to help me evolve and grow, in another way. So that's, again, inner freedom.
Inner freedom. That's the perfect way to wrap up this conversation. I love it so much, Todd. And of course, we have to hear on the Emily the Mystic show, what does being a mystic mean to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, mysticism, being a mystic, is being in touch with the subtler aspects of life, the more quiet aspects of life. And I think there are different layers to that. I think the ultimate true mysticism is is being in touch with your own being, like true, just silent being. It's that witness, that quiet. That's what mysticism is. And then there are a lot of layers in between. If you think the surface of life at the top and the depth of life at that silent being level, just dropping into that in meditation is a mystical experience. Um, but then living that in daily life is a bigger mystical experience. Seeing all of the surface as part of the whole, all in one, that is another mystical experience. So we can get caught with different ideas of different experiences that can happen in the subtle areas of awareness and think that's the whole story. That's mysticism in a way. It's a part of it, but it's not the whole. And I can even say, like, even wisdom or even power or even the things that come from being in touch with subtler aspects of ourselves is not the true mysticism. That is like the effect of mysticism. So ultimately, it comes down to being, really settling and being with yourself.
Such a deep answer that would come from a Scorpio rising. I love
Yeah,
it.
really,
So
right?
powerful. Yes.
Love it.
And any final tips for us for living a mystical life?
I think I mentioned it, but I've been meditating since I was a kid, and it's like almost 50 years now of meditating. I do transcendental meditation. It's an amazing little practice, 20 minutes twice a day. It opens your heart, it settles you, it allows you to experience that level of being. It develops an experience of mysticism, absolutely. Um, and and I invite you to do like the advanced techniques. Even I practice something called yogic flying, which is like part of one of their advanced techniques. And even though I don't levitate, it's like I have there's nothing that opens my heart so much and settles me and removes stress and brings me back into myself as these kinds of practices. And then if you pair that with doing something like the work of Byron Katie, which just it improves my sanity, it just puts me back into my own business again and again, helps me take responsibility in a gentle way, then that's what I say. These are the two engines on my peace train.
Love it. Beautifully said. Thank you, Todd. And where can people find you and how can people work with you right now?
Yeah, you can find me in two places. You can check out my podcast, which is stress management for highly sensitive people. If you just type HSP, you'll find it there. And you can go to my website, trueinnerfreedom.com, and I have a HSP stress test there, which is a great starting point to working with me. It will give you these are standardized tests where you'll give you your um, how sensitive you are on the HSP scale, and then what your levels of anxiety and depression and stress are as they show up on that test. And then I have a 6-month program called the HSP Inner Freedom Program, and it's a great way I throw everything I have at you in those 6 months, and it's amazing. We've got a community. I do group sessions. You have access to me for one-on-ones when you need them, and I just continue to evolve that and grow it, and it can be an amazing transformational experience.
Awesome, Todd. Wow, sounds fabulous. Well, thank you so much for this deep conversation and for all of your wisdom today. I know the listener needed to hear it. And yeah, such a joy to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. It's a pleasure to be here.
And the portal is now closed.